Alright, now I'm back. Ugh. All the things. See if I can get those in. Chris, go get me my Dr. Pepper bottle over there. Or give me my Mr. Pibb bottle over there. I need to drink that. Throw there by my desk. Okay, so I'm gonna wait a little bit because, of course, everything gets knocked out. And let me.
Is Mr.
Yes, it's the same like Dr. Pepper, a little spicier. Finally got my hands on a Mr. Pibb. Alright, now let's see if we can get back to business since everything went to crap. Okay, so we'll check one more thing. Copy that. Let's go here, 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 here. Where'd it go? Oh, there we go. Liv says, feel like Liv is going to be the next to kicked out of the group. I would not be surprised. And that's kind of what I'm going for. I'll post my YouTube link right there. And go here, go here. And okay, now I'm back. So I don't know what happened with Streamlab. Streamlab decided to give up its ghost, but I am back. So I'm gonna play a little bit as Breath of Fire 4. It may not be a full session, but I want to play enough. I want to talk about a couple of things. So, welcome to Save Point, where we talk the game and pause the game and talk WWE. Tonight we are playing Breath of Fire 4 because we are trying to look for this mayor who set all these traps. But we need to talk about why Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley is already bigger than Liv Morgan versus Stephanie Vaquer. Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley is already more interesting than Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer, and the reason why, it might actually expose Liv Morgan a bit, character-wise. Because one of these stories is building to something bigger, and the other one feels like it's falling apart in real time. So let's talk about it, shall we? And let me see if we can find this mayor, because I gave up the last time we played, so let's get to it. Wait, I did not do that. You know you don't. That's the wrong thing to do. Wrong save file, of course. Okay, so we are going to go back to the main menu because I need to load up the right one. And why isn't... Okay, I hate it when my game does not want to recognize my Xbox controller. Yeah, finally. Okay. We are in Curia. That's 191. Okay, I think we're right here. Okay. Let's go see if we can find this mayor. And I really hate the rotations on this thing too sometimes. Everything rotates. This is a carryover from Breath of Fire 3 where you have to rotate everything. Me no likey. Oh my gosh. Alright. Let's find this mayor, shall we? Man, rare. Gotta look rid of this egg beer. Oh, that's from the Tail series. You think? Chubby. Oh, Chubby Boy has joined. Mayor got stuck in his own traps. Looks like. Hey, Chubby Boy, you're always making me buzz. Thank you for joining. Alright, so let's see if we can actually get the mayor this time and track this bear. There are lots of traps in the woods. Okay. Let me go here. I just lost YouTube. Well, not really lost YouTube, just... Let's see. Cleve said, and did you see a video of the video of Dom hanging out with a bunch of girls after his match against Vikingo? Yes, I did, and that was very interesting because they mentioned garitas, plural. And please note that Dom, real life Dom here, does not refer to his wife as a garita. So that was very, very interesting. But I'll talk to that later. Hey, Masha. Alright, let's go find this mayor. I need to get through this section. Alright, we need to find the stump. Oop, not that. I need to attack. Khalib says, let me pause this for a little bit because I want to answer this question. Khalib says, is Liv kicking Roxanne out of the group since she talked about her in a public mode? She kind of talked around it, but then if you see her on social, she was saying that she wanted Roxanne back. So I don't think Roxanne is getting kicked. And actually, it actually wouldn't make sense for Roxanne to get kicked because she hasn't been set up in the way that Finn was, like face wise, and like Liv has been set up. Like Liv and Finn have gotten the most build out of this right now. Where Stephanie is saying that Liv doesn't really need Judgment Day. She's hiding behind Judgment Day, which can lead for Liv to say that she doesn't need Judgment Day to fight her battles. And then with Finn, he was set up by CM Punk and saying that, Judgment Day was an albatross around his neck. He should have been elevating Judgment Day. Instead, they brought him down. You see the similarities here between the talk with Finn and Liv compared to everybody else? So Roxanne has not gotten that sort of build just yet. Now, can it happen with Roxanne? Yeah, but I think they could have done that prior to Roxanne leaving to get that surgery on that mass that she had, because they could have did that and then have her be written off, and then she could have came back like as a face, because that gives you a little bit of build. Build her up a little bit, write her off with so she can have surgery, and then she can come back. But they didn't do that. So, Roxanne does not have that face build, so I don't think she's getting kicked. Finn and Liv have gotten that build, and I'm going to get into why Liv is still looking like she's being primed for a solo run, especially with how she's getting a Fortnite skin now. And yeah, Clabe, I'm going to talk about the credit thing because she really hasn't done that much. And that really irks me. As a Dom fan, it's really irking me that it's like Liv taking over Dom's story when people would bitch a fit when Dom was in Liv's story. Even though I was saying, like, Dom is not necessary. He shouldn't be necessary for that for you to get heat. Liv is completely unnecessary for Dom and Finn. So we see what's going on here. So which means I do see that she's getting set up for a big fall. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too. So, like, she's taking all this credit, but she hasn't done anything. It was She didn't initiate anything. She could say she planned it, but where's the Bonnie and Clyde? You see where how this is missing here? She's taking credit, so but where's Bonnie and Clyde? Where's Natural Born Killers? Where's Liv Dawn versus the world? Because if you're taking credit, you're positioning yourself as the leader of Judgment Day. And look what happens to the leader of Judgment Day. We just saw it with Finn. And even though I'm calling Dawn the leader, he has not positioned himself or presented himself as leader. There's a difference. But I'm going to get into that too. But let me see if I can get this mayor, or at least where I can start looking for this mayor, because I have been frustrated with this thing for a moment now. Oh, good grief. Okay, so there's that. Yeah. Okay, let's go place this in. Like, how does this bear not see? You know what? Oh, you. Ay. I gotta go get another apple, don't I? Crap. Alright. Oh my gosh. I'm going to be stuck on this stupid thing forever, aren't I? I'm gonna be stuck on this thing. I know it. I know it. Now I need to figure out how to get out of here. Okay, can't go that way. Can't go that way. I'm just rocking in circles. Okay, let's go this way. Yeah, finally. Alright, so I'm getting tired of that, so let's talk a little bit, shall we? Um, what does that say? Maisha says, do you think when Roxanne returns, he will try to get Roxanne? Who? Dom? Need clarification on that. Jacob says, what do you think they should do with about Roxanne? I think she should come back at WrestleMania, honestly. Have her have a big return. If they're waiting this long. Khalib said, wasn't she working with Finn to get rid of Damien and Rhea out of the group? See, that's the thing, too. Like, if you were already... There's inconsistencies with Liv's story. Because if you were taking down Finn, too, which you would have a reason to, because Finn did join Judgment Day after they had joined up together to fight Judgment Day. So, if you're doing that, then you're trying to get rid of Finn. It means that you use Dom's title to get rid of Finn. And you cannot call me mean, why are you so mean against Liv when I'm using Liv's own words? So you knew, I'll get into it, but it's just a lot of inconsistencies with the story. But she's taking a lot of credit when it was dependent on other people's reactions. And what I mean by dependent on other people's reactions is that Finn had pretty much kicked himself out of Judgment Day prior to JD going and laying him out. Because it was Finn that had taught Dom. Dom shoved Finn, but it was Finn about to whoop Dom's ass. So she was depending on Finn to start something there. And then she was dependent on Finn to cost Dom his title to get him out. You see where I'm going with this? There's a lot of things that's dependent on other people. That's not control. That just means that you were just waiting on something to happen and then you can swoop in and take credit for it. Khalib says, Raquel always gets distracted when Liv was in her matches respectively. Well, Raquel is doing a lot to defend Liv, but she's not getting reciprocation. Like, Liv is paying a lot of lip service on Liv saying that Raquel should have a title, but she's not really doing anything to help Raquel get to those titles. And when she did try to quote unquote help Raquel get those titles, she cost her, like with Stephanie. And then here, when Raquel was going up against Stephanie, Raquel decided to take out Io because Io was after Liv's ass, and then she gets rolled up by Stephanie. And of course, somebody was saying, "Well, she shouldn't have defended it. She shouldn't have went after Io and went after and continued with her match." And I'm like, okay, if Raquel had ignored Io and Io had started beating up on Liv, people would be crying about Raquel, saying that that she's a snake because she allowed Liv to get beat up. And I bet a whole bunch on that. Like, if Raquel had ignored Io and didn't take her out, we would be getting a lot of people on here saying that, oh, Raquel, just let Liv get beat up. Why was she so concerned about her match with Stephanie that doesn't have any meaning, for the, for Raquel, it's just a match when she let Liv get beat up. That would have been the conversation that right after the match. But here, when I pointed out that Liv pretty much, Raquel defending Liv got her to lose, and people were wanting to say, well, she should have concentrated on her match. I'm like, no, if we had if it happened the opposite way, people would be saying that Raquel allowed Liv to get beat up, and I'm right about that. Senor says, what if Roxanne helps Dom to win over Finn at WrestleMania 42? See, the Dom and Finn situation is very tricky because they both need a win. And that's why Dom shouldn't have lost his title to Penta like he had, and this should have been like a Dom versus Finn for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania, like it should have been, like it should have started last year. But now Dom needs a win, or at least in the WWE, because he's lost twice now, and then Finn needs a win because he's now a face and he needs to reestablish himself. So they both need a win. So now logic would state that if Finn brings back the demon character, that Finn should win. So what does that do for Dom? Is he going to be on a losing streak? And then you could have like, well, Liv doesn't need it anymore because he's losing. But then Dom pretty much proves in AAA that he can win on his own. I mean, yeah, he had Mini Vikingo, and I'll get into that too. But, you know, presentation-wise, currently in the WWE, he has proven that he can win on his own. But will he be given that win? What I would like to kind of see happen is Roxanne, like, if this is before, it depends on where Dom and Finn are placed relative to Liv and Stephanie. Like, if Dom and Finn's match is before Liv's and Stephanie's, what I would like to see is like what Senor said. Have Roxanne come back, kind of do like kind of mimic what Liv did at Survivor Series, but minus the slapping. Like, no slapping, because I'm tired of dog getting slapped by a woman. You know, have Roxanne come back. Finn thinks that she's on his side, but she turns on him, reestablishing herself as somebody loyal to Dom and helps Dom win. That's what I would like. Now, will Finn lose? Yeah. But I think Finn can take the loss because he's already been losing. Dom needs that upswing to reestablish himself because he's already lost twice by now. Probably third if he ever gets that rematch with Penta. So he needs that reestablishment to get a win, and then that sets him off. And if they want to continue the storyline with Dom and Finn, you can put off the demon until a little bit later on. You know, I wouldn't mind, you know, if you're going to keep, if it's not going to be one and done with Dom and Finn, and I really think that it shouldn't be one and done, then you can kind of continue the feud a little bit and have Dom take the first win and then Finn can win the next one. But that's what I would do. I would have Roxanne come back, help Dom, and then since Liv is so busy preparing for her match, she doesn't come out. And then you can have Liv be insecure about Roxanne coming back to help Dom. And that leads into Liv's match with Stephanie later. Jacob says, how weird was it seeing Damian and Truth win the tag team titles last night? I mean, I knew that was going to happen as soon as they set it up, and then they had the White Sits come out to distract. I knew they were going to happen. And they need to give Damon something to do because he has no aura and he's dropped way off since he left the Judgment Day. Like, they really... See, if Damien had the Gooners after him, like Rhea has the Gooners, then he would be a lot better off. But he dropped off hard. See, Rhea could fall back on her Gooners. Damien couldn't. So he fell off. And they keep pushing him to win because he never actually loses a feud. You know, he kept going after Drew until he won. He kept going after Aleister Black after, you know, until he won. So I guess you give him the titles with R-Truth, and I guess that's okay, but I really don't like that. I don't like Damien and Truth being the champs when we have Faxium, we have Motor City Machine Guns, we have, who else was there? We do have some other tag teams in there. Like, we could have some other tag teams, you know, Street Profits if they ever come back. Like, they fell off hard since WrestleMania last year. We had a nice, epic ladder match for the tag team titles at WrestleMania, and look at where they're at now. And Raw isn't any better. Jacob says, what about Dom and Finn ends in no contest at WrestleMania? I don't think they'll ever do that. It's going to be a winner. Somebody's going to lose. And I'm not sure who's going to lose. I would err on the side of Dom needing it a little bit more than Finn. Because Finn kind of already established himself in defeat. And you could have Dom win here to actually set up a proper return of the demon. You know. And then Ben can win it when the demon comes back. Um, Let me get into Liv in a little bit here. And I'm going to talk about Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley because there's a point to it. So, Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley is already more interesting than Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer. Because when you look at Jade versus Rhea, this is what a WrestleMania story looks like, and a feud build-up looks like. It started off slow and rocky. It started off with that fiery start until somebody got their feelings hurt. Cough, cough, Rhea Ripley. But it started off slow, and now it's picking up because Jade finally brought in her baddies in Michin and B-Fab. And now this isn't just Jade versus Rhea anymore. This is a situation where Rhea doesn't just have a problem with Jade, she has a problem with two other people. And with this story now is that Rhea's history is finally being used against her. The same history we all said that should have been happening and should have been brought up with Liv when she was going up against Rhea is now being used against Jade. And I guess it's better late than never, but now that history is being used against Rhea. How's it getting be used against Rhea? Because Rhea has no friends. She has no friends on SmackDown. Her friendship with Io is on Raw. She's on SmackDown. She's alone. She has no friends. And they are actually using the history that Michin and Rhea still have beef when Michin was rolling with AJ Styles and the Good Brothers when they were on Raw. Because remember, AJ and the Good Brothers brought in Michin to take care of Rhea because Rhea kept interfering with AJ and the Good Brothers when they were fighting up against Dom and Finn and Damian, in the Judgment Day. So they brought in Michin as the equalizer. So they have beef. And that's long-term history. They never did squash that beef. It just went away because of the draft. But that beef was still there. So that's why last week when Rhea was all coming around trying to check on Michin and Michin wasn't having none of it, and that makes sense because the beef wasn't squashed. And with B-Fab has been treated not as well with Rhea either because Rhea was tossing her out of the Royal Rumble and getting eliminated by her. So she doesn't have no love lost for Rhea either. So that sets up Michin and B-Fab joining against Jade because Jade could present Michin with B-Fab saying, hey, you have this Raw superstar that's coming in after y'all have been fighting me, and then here she comes with the title shot. She did win Elimination Chamber, but she's coming in from Raw and thinking everything's going to be hunky-dory dandy. And with Jade, they can also present it as that Jade, even though she was beating Michin and B-Fab's ass, you could present it as Michin and B-Fab saying if you can't beat them, join them, because that's been going on anyway. Because remember how Bronson Reed just joined Seth Rollins in the Division, even though that makes a lot less sense than B-Fab and Michin joining with Jade. But you could at least run it that way, and you could also run it that Jade has respect for Michin and B-Fab because they did keep stepping up to her. Everybody else stopped. Charlotte did, but since they're not going to run Charlotte, you can also run it like Jade has this respect for them because they did step up and they were trying. They didn't just lay down. So you can run it that way. And because of that, it's just building up the story. Now Rhea's gonna use them as fodder as usual, but it is gonna give it where I don't think Rhea's gonna win that title. So you have bodies for Rhea to fight, and then you have a story developing here where Rhea's on her own. Now, if they want to bring in Io, they could, but I would just leave Rhea on her own because she needs to experience that. That character needs that. Because that's what we always say. Her history needs to finally be used against her. And now it is. And like I said, Rhea and Michin go back to the Judgment Day area. That's real history, and that's that long-term history. And um, layered storytelling by Triple H. Now, is Triple H the best booker? No, hell no. There are still issues with Triple H. He waits too long to pull the trigger. Sometimes the stories don't make a lot of sense, but here the storyline is actually there. It's been building for months. Um, Somebody actually pointed out that it was B-Fab and Michin checking on Jade when the Naomi revelation came out. So they have been in each other's orbit for a while now. I mean, yeah, Jade has been fighting with Michin and B-Fab, but that's because there's nobody else. They weren't putting anybody else to fight with her. So if they had Jade probably mix it in with somebody else, it probably would be as glaring as it is right now. It's just that right now Triple H just finally pulled the trigger. It's kind of like how the Finn Balor and Dom thing. Like Triple H finally pulled the trigger. And like I said, Triple H still has his issues. This is not praising Triple H, because hell no, we don't praise Triple H on this channel. This is just saying that the story is there, and there's always a story there. It's just that you gotta dig really hard to get it sometimes. Now, take all this of what I said with Jade and Rhea, now that we got an actual story building up with Rhea versus Jade. Now, let's go look at Liv and Stephanie. Because what have we gotten with Liv and Stephanie? Liv has attacked Stephanie twice. Out of nowhere, basically. Most of the build has been in video promos where Dom has been used as a translator. And then we'll have a fire promo with Liv, and then a promo against with Stephanie. And then when we actually get a pretty much an even battle between Liv and Stephanie pretty much handled Liv on her own. She didn't really, there was nothing there. Stephanie didn't struggle, none of that. Liv got handled easily. And then another big red flag, because we're talking about it, is that Liv's promo on Monday wasn't even about Stephanie. It was about Finn. So she's distracted with Finn and crowing and taking credit for kicking out Finn. And I know they had to do something because Dom was out because he's in concussion protocol. But still, she's talking about Finn and ignoring Stephanie, like her opponent at WrestleMania. So you got Liv talking about Finn, and then her own match against Stephanie, and building that storyline up is falling off by the wayside. It's a distraction. And this is where it really starts to fall apart. This feud between Liv and Stephanie was way more interesting when Dom was involved, and you can't deny that. This is exactly what happened when he was with Rhea versus Becky, when he was with Rhea against Charlotte, and when he was with Liv versus Rhea. Dom adds the tension, Dom adds the story, and he adds unpredictability. But once he was removed, the feud lost all the energy. And now, the interest with the storyline isn't just what's going on between Liv and Stephanie, it's what's going to happen surrounding the match. If the match isn't interesting on its own, it's what's gonna be in the aftermath of the match. Will Dom show up? Will he betray Liv? Will Raquel turn on Liv? Will the Judgment Day get involved? That's surrounding the match. It's not Liv and Stephanie's story. It's what's the stuff around it. And a good reason why Raquel should be added, but I'll get into that later. But Liv and Stephanie aren't interesting on their own. Here, at least with Jade and Rhea, they've actually brought in Rhea's history, and that becomes more interesting. Now, character-wise, Rhea is still not my favorite character. I really want to like her, but until they fix her character, I'm not with it. But it's getting more interesting now, because if they actually run The Chickens Have Come to Roost with Rhea, she becomes more interesting and a lot more palatable when it comes to being in all these title matches. And so with Liv and Stephanie, it's not a strong feud. People are waiting for the twist. We're waiting for, does Dom betray Liv? Does he cheat on Liv? Does he become a triple heel? Does Raquel turn on Liv? Does Roxanne turn on Liv? What does JD do? And this is where it comes next back to the Judgment Day, because the real issue is Liv Morgan. And I'm going to put a pause on that. I'll get into that more later. So, let me answer a little bit more, saying, 666 Dom Mysterio versus Logan Paul. Like, I don't want to see that. I need Dom after CM Punk. I don't need Dom after Logan Paul. Logan Paul can go sit down somewhere. Seriously. Big Boys. Oh, on YouTube. Hey, Big Boy. Stephanie kind of felt like a third wheel once Liv and Raquel started teasing issues with each other. And he also says, I do like that Rhea is a lot more valuable for a change in the storyline. But Big Boy, you're right about that. Stephanie does feel like a third wheel, and that's why they needed Raquel as a connective tissue with that storyline. Raquel is needed for the Liv and Stephanie feud. I don't care what people say online with Liv and Stephanie. They keep trying to say, well, Liv and Stephanie are just more interested than Rhea and Jay. Nah, not after this past Friday. They keep trying to push it like, oh, well, Liv and Stephanie, they've had all these fire promos. If you look at other commentators, not just me, I am just a commentator on storylines, particularly Judgment Day. But if you look at any other major commentator who has no ties into the Judgment Day or have a vested interest in the Judgment Day, they're not interested in that storyline. They're not. My own people that I talk to say that they don't even pay attention to it. The moment the Dom was removed, people got less interested in it. So, Liv and Stephanie on its own isn't interesting. Online, on paper, will it be a good match? Yeah. But there's a lot of matches that are going to be good matches. But will it have the storyline heat to it? No. And that's the point. That's the issue. Khalib says, so is Dom going to bring you the curse to live or not, and not be there to stop it? I really don't care about Danhausen. He can go curse other people, but I want him away from Dom, and I really don't want him around Liv either. Like, I don't need Danhausen around the storyline when it's starting to turn serious. He's campy. Let him be campy with Kit Wilson and The Miz and Jelly Roll. Like, he could be over there. I don't need Danhausen around Dom, Liv, Judgment Day when it's getting serious right now. Now, Judgment Day can be silly and fun, yeah, but this is a serious turning point with Judgment Day, and I don't need Danhausen around it. Senor said, can you see a future match between the Vision and Judgment Day if everybody gets healthy in the Vision? Jacob said, do you think Dom will win the Money in the Bank and cashing in as the World Heavyweight title to win it? I can see a scenario where Dom wins Money in the Bank and then maybe Finn wins World Heavyweight Championship and he cashes in on Finn. See, that's another scenario here. Like, Dom can win here, Finn can win the next one, and then Dom can come back around with Money in the Bank and win against Finn. That's another scenario with Dom and Finn. But let me go and see if I can find this stupid egg bear. Or this boar. Or whatever this thing is. I'm so annoyed with this game already. Alright. Ugh! A ultra vest. Alright. applicant. Bless you. Alright, memorable. How do I hit this thing again? Okay. Yeah. Really? Okay. What if I need to... Normal. Okay. There we go. Alright, let me go save. Alright, so... let's talk a little bit more, shall we? Chica said, what do you think will happen when Dom and El Grande have the match? Probably El Grande is winning it because he is loved in Mexico, and I'm talking about the Ludwig version of it, not Chad Gable. So he's probably going to win it. Unless they delay it, but I don't think they will. Jacob said, have you played 2K26? No. Let's see here. Clem says, how come Dom didn't blame Liv on why he got cursed by Danhausen? He didn't really... I'm glad that he didn't reference the curse. It just went straight to Finn where it should have been. Because just blaming Danhausen kind of takes away from the moment. Big Boy says, I still remember how they did with Rhea in the past, so I'm not going to get too excited because Tripp is going to find a way to keep her looking strong even at the expense of mentioning BFAB. Yeah, that's always the thing with Rhea. I really don't like how she can just overpower people. That's why Raquel should have been, like... Rhea's booking is so frustrating because Raquel is stronger than her. Like, seriously. She is stronger than Rhea, but she gets tossed. She was just being manhandled so easily. It is just annoying. It's like when, what was it, Raquel, Liv, and Roxanne had that match against Io, Stephanie, and Rhea, and then it was just like Raquel was getting tossed to the side, but as soon as Raquel was outside of the Rhea vortex, as people call it, she looked better. She looked more dominant. And that's always the issue with Rhea. Like, she shouldn't be tossing people like that. She shouldn't be built like that. It's just really, really annoying. They said that he needs to stay away from her dance. Well, she needs to stop taking credit for stuff that she didn't really even do. TGJC says, I feel like Io and Raquel are going to become a bigger point in the next few weeks. Like, there's definitely a tag match with Liv and Raquel versus Io and Stephanie leading to a Mania Fatal 4-Way. And I know people are going to bitch about that, but that's what needs to be happening with this match. It needs more drama. You can't have Liv and Stephanie straight up. And had they included Raquel in the first place, or if they hadn't just waited to pull, or they didn't just pull the trigger with Raquel, like Liv eliminating her, then you might have been able to make a stronger case for Liv and Stephanie straight up. But right now, it's just floundering. Mackenzie said, Liv Morgan needs to turn babyface. I don't mind seeing Stephanie Vaquer as a heel character. It will be interesting. I just don't think they want to turn Stephanie heel. They will want to turn Liv babyface because she's got this movie coming up, but I don't see Stephanie turning heel. Maybe on later on down the line. But speaking of Liv Morgan, let's loop it back to her. Now, we're talking about this plan. Liv is saying that everything was her plan. Getting rid of Finn, her plan. Everything happening right now, her plan. But when you actually look at what happened, none of it happens and none of it works without Dom and JD. JD stepped up. He stopped Finn's attack. Dom took the hits, but Dom was making the moves. He initiated the attack against Finn. Liv didn't control any of it. She showed up after it happened and called it her plan. And if your plan is only working because other people executed for you, you're not in control. You're just benefiting from what's happening. And the biggest example of this, she used Dominik. She used his Intercontinental Championship. She used all this to get Finn out of Judgment Day. That's not a strategy. That's sacrificing. She sacrificed Dom's title to get what she wants. And when you do something like that, there are consequences. Because now Dom has a reason to move differently towards Liv. He already has a reason to cheat on her. Remember when I said after Survivor Series that the reason why Dom can have a reason, because everybody always want to say that Dom needs a reason to act like he did, even though he doesn't need it now because he turned on El Grande Americano without reason. This is before the handshake with Ray. I'm talking about before that. He doesn't need an excuse now to move, but here he's having a reason. He doesn't really need the reason, but the previous reason is that if he needed a reason to do anything against Liv, he had already had a reason. Liv said that she used Dom to get to Rhea. If Dom is playing the long game with Liv, then he can just bring that up, saying, hey, if you're going to use me against Rhea, I can use you. So he already had a reason. Because Liv already admitted that she used him to get to Rhea. Now, he has even more reasons to go after Liv. Because she used him and his title to get Finn kicked out of Judgment Day. And this is using Liv's own words. This isn't just me speculating and just me analyzing the story. This is Liv's own words. She said this was all her plan. If she was always watching and she was always knowing what Finn was up to, then she knew that Finn was not going to help Dom. And then she wasn't there to help Dom. So if you knew that what Finn was going to do, then she should have been out there to help JD thwart Finn. But she was not out there to thwart Finn. And you cannot say that she wasn't needed because everybody wants to say that she's always watching. And they always wanted to hold things against Roxanne and Raquel for not being there, even though they were there showing up for the most for Dom during the live event tours. Remember that? You remember that whole brouhaha when people were saying that Liv would have been scratching CM Punk's eyes out, even though it was Roxanne that was low blowing CM Punk and Raquel beating up CM Punk on Dom's behalf during those live event tours. Now look, fast forward all the way to now. When Liv was in a prime position to attack Finn, she did nothing. Raquel was out of position. You notice that? Raquel was out of position. So it wasn't even a case of Raquel and Liv not doing anything. Raquel was already on that other side because Finn pushed off JD. If y'all noticed that, if you go back 2 weeks ago, Finn pushed JD to Sling Blade Dom. And then once he got up, Finn was staring down Liv. Raquel was already going on that other side looking at JD. So she was looking after her man. So Raquel is over there looking at JD. But Liv, when she was in the prime position to do something, Finn attacked her man. Look, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the relationship status. Raquel doesn't roll for Dom in that way. So this is your man. You are staring down the man that attacked your man and did nothing. And I don't want to hear, well, she wasn't booked for it. No, bullshit. That's your man. If Lyra can come out to help Bailey when Kyrie was out there trying to help Asuka during that elimination chamber, that Intercontinental qualifier, that gauntlet match, then Liv could have been doing something. So she did nothing. But now she wants to take credit after the fact, even though she did nothing. I didn't see her, like, getting, when Finn turned his back to Liv, Finn was in a prime position to get low blowed. And I'm saying it now, if Roxanne was in that position, Roxanne would have been fighting tooth and nail against Finn. She would have had to been held back against Finn. I know it. Like, if Roxanne was in that position as she is now against Finn, if Finn had went against Dom, she would have been fighting. But Liv, she could have low blowed him. She could have did any number of things against Finn, and she didn't. And the bigger problem for Liv is that the group isn't actually moving with her. JD made his position very clear. He's with Dom, straight up. He turned against Finn, his own mentor, his own Da, for Finn. It wasn't for Liv, it was for Dom. He's with Dom, he speaks for Dom, and he moves for Dom. That's not someone following Liv, that's someone choosing a side. And then here comes Raquel. Raquel is taking losses. She's protecting Liv. She's backing her up. But what has Liv done for her? Liv has eliminated Raquel from the Royal Rumble. She cost Stephanie the title on the Monday after the Royal Rumble. When Raquel is trying to qualify for things other than the Elimination Chamber, Liv was out there costing her. And then when Io gets involved with her match to come after Liv, and then Raquel defends Liv, she gets rolled up. She's taking losses. She's not benefiting at all for this relationship with Liv anymore. Liv is doing nothing for her. Liv plays a lot of lip service to making Raquel a champion, but she's not doing anything for her. She's not moving any mountains for her. For being a sister, quote unquote. Raquel is sacrificing for Liv, but Liv isn't sacrificing for anyone. And eventually, that's going to flip. And even outside this storyline, in the real world, not kayfabe-wise, things aren't lining up either. Liv is getting a Fortnite skin alongside Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's huge. That's mainstream. And that's not faction positioning. That's single star positioning. That's positioning for a breakout moment. This isn't positioning for her to be built as a leader of a group. This is looking like she's being set up to be on her own. Because if this was still Liv Dawn versus the world, if this was Nacho Born Killers, if this was Bonnie and Clyde, where is Dom fitting into any of this? Where does Dom fit right now as it relates to Liv? And you can't just say that there's still Liv Dom versus the world. Where does Dom fit in right now? Be honest with yourself. And when you combine everything, she's not dominating Liv. She's getting handled by Stephanie. Her focus is split, and all of her big moments are being dependent on other people. And I'm going to let y'all chew on that, because we're going to do a little bit of fantasy booking regarding WrestleMania, even though we kind of did that already, and what I see for Monday Night Raw. I'm going to see if I can get this stupid boar and get out of this. Khalib said, wasn't Liv and Finn in the car together having a conversation together? That one was tricky because it showed Liv and Finn at different times. I have it time stamped. If you go way 2-3 years back on my TikTok, I time stamped it. Liv shows up first, and then it was showing Finn, but they weren't shown. It was just weird. Like, yeah, it looks like they were talking together there. And at the time, I said that they weren't because there was a time discrepancy there. Because they actually put the times there when they showed Liv and Stephanie. Because Finn was, like, not in the car when they showed him. They showed him, like, walking away from it. But I have that on my TikTok. If you want to go all the way back, like 2-3 years, I have it there. I might have to go find that again because that I do have that documented. TDJC says regarding Dominik Grande, if Chad and Ludwig don't have a match versus match, I don't see Ludwig winning. Chad will get involved and cost him either by DQ or taken out or Dom's pin. I think they will pull the trigger sooner than later with El Grande because they already got a star, and then they could move El Grande against Vikingo if they wanted to. And they might be wrapping up Dom's tenure in AAA anyway. Especially if Dom is moving up the card as a main eventer in the WWE. TJC says, this thing with Liv isn't new. She's been letting Finn screw over Dom since he lost the street fight to Jamie. And yet, see, that's another thing too. She has been doing that. It just hasn't been as blatantly obvious like it was. Like a couple of years ago, yeah, it wasn't as obvious. Now it is. Mackenzie says Liv needs to separate herself from Judgment Day after Mania. They need some new storylines, new rivalry. Well, the expiration date for relationships are 2 years, kayfabe wise. Nobody really makes it past 2 years. That's why I always kind of chuckle to myself where people were saying, well, they had so much time taken away from them. Dom and Rhea had a lot of juice left with them, and they still split them, and they came up right up on that 2-year mark too. I mean, just because time was taken away from the couple, quote unquote, doesn't mean that they won't split. We're right up on that 2-year mark. And after a while, it just gets stale. So it's gonna end up with them separating. And at this point, they're better situated away from each other. You can still have Dom with Judgment Day as its leader, and because he still needs that as a heel. Like, he's still being presented as a heel. Liv right now is getting the presentation of, you could be all this if you didn't hide behind your trashy man. You could be all this if you weren't hiding behind Raquel. You could be all this if you weren't hiding behind the Judgment Day. You see the difference in presentations here? Dom is not getting a presentation of, you could be all this if you didn't have Judgment Day. Man is still insulting his dad, as we saw in AAA tonight. Like, he's still straight up insulting Rey Mysterio. And he's getting boos now in AAA too, especially in compared to El Grande Americano. So Dom is still being presented as a heel. And he's still being, and even though people like to cheer for the heel, he's still heel. He hasn't deviated. Like, he doesn't play into the fans like The Rock was doing back when he was about to turn face in the Attitude Era. He's not doing that. He's still straight up heel, up and down. Liv, she's getting this presentation. So when a push comes to shove, you can see her very easily saying to Raquel, like Raquel will say, like, hey, I have your back against Stephanie. You can see Liv say, no, I need to do this on my own because I need to prove to Stephanie, kind of like how Finn was saying to JD and Dom, that, hey, I need to do this on my own. That's face moves. Khalib said Liv uses people to make herself look good and brag about it in her promo video. Yeah. Let's see. Back to TikTok. Jacob says, other than the stuff on with the Judgment Day, what do you expect on Raw? I don't know. A lot of the stuff I don't really care for. I am kind of interested in what they're going to be doing with Maxine, though. Senor said, Raquel chose for Dom's side before Finn hit the Pele kick. Yeah, she did. You know, of all people, Raquel would have the most not to choose Dom's side. Why? Because Dom cost Raquel title opportunities when he was with Rhea. So Raquel would have the biggest reason to be like, hey, I'm not rocking with Dom because of it. But she is the one that's been sticking up for Dom. And honestly, if you look at what Dom has done with Raquel, he was supporting Raquel in her title aspirations, even when it goes in when it competed with Liv. Like with Liv return, she kind of threw threw the gauntlet down towards Stephanie, but it was Dom that was still hyping up Raquel when Raquel wanted to go for the title. He was still doing that. And when Raquel was still doing things like Elimination Chamber, things like that, he was still supporting Raquel. Even though Liv wanted the title, and it's obvious that she wanted the title, she was just dancing around it because she was like, she was doing will she or won't she with her Royal Rumble choice. Dom was still being very supportive to Raquel. So Dom, for his part, has been very supportive of Raquel. See, this is where that Liv Dom versus the world falls flat on his face now, because this would have been a prime opportunity for for Dom to throw all in with Liv and be against what Raquel was doing, but he didn't do that. He's always supported Raquel when she was trying to go for the title. He's always done that. So for Raquel to fall in with Dom, and I think that's going to be the biggest point. I made a video 2 weeks ago saying that it's going to come down to Dom is going to be like Dom is going to be the opposite of Rey Mysterio, where Rey Mysterio will choose people over his family and friends. Like Dom, he chose Dragon Lee over Santos. Rey has that history. You were supposed to be my friend, Batista to Rey. Rey has that history. With Dom, they're going to flip it. Dom is going to have people that will eschew their own family and friends and establish relationships for him. So they're going to flip it. And it started with JD. JD disregarded his relationship with Finn, his mentor, his dog, for Dom. And this theory is going to get proven when Raquel is down to the wire. Is she going to choose Liv, her sister, her friend, the one that she won all these multiple tag team titles with? Or is she going to choose Dom? And if she chooses Dom, that theory is proven correct. Because she chose Dom, someone who has cost her title opportunities, mind you, over Liv. Now, she has a reason to do that, but same thing, JD had a reason to do that with Finn. Like, JD had a reason to not want you to go all in with Finn. And Raquel will have a reason not to go all in with Liv. But it's still severing that relationship for Dom. And Dom is going to be he's going to be a reverse Rey Mysterio. He is. Probably, and that's probably going to be a marker. Like how everybody jokes, like how I was joking, like Ray Phoenix has the opportunity to do something hilarious by turning on Penta for Dom. I was joking about that last week. Like, he could do something hilarious. Turn on Penta, hook up with Dom, and then we can have, that, we'll have that going. Or if Dragon Lee, if he was still rolling around aimless, Dragon Lee could have been doing the same thing. Like, turn on Ray, because everybody turns on Ray, and to join up with Dom. So you could do that with Raquel. She's like, Liv was my sister, but Dom, who cost me opportunities, did his darndest to make that up and supported me when Liv wouldn't have my back. And there you go. And Jadarius says, "Hey Maven, hey Jadarius, thank you for liking. I saw you like that, so I'm sorry it took me a while to get to say hi to you, but I had to get that out." Back to YouTube, because YouTube is popping. Khalib says, when was Dom and JD ever buddies? They never talked to each other. Yes, they have. JD has been there for Dom, and Dom has been there for JD. If you have been observant of Judgment Day history, when JD was brought in, he was brought in as a meat shield. Kind of like how Dom was still a meat shield. Like, it was Dom that was always taking the hits for Finn and Damien. And then when JD came in, it was Dom and JD being the meat shields. But they had each other's back. And they built a brotherhood around that. Like, they were just always meat shields for everybody in the group. That's why it was weird when JD and Dom kind of had that little falling out last year, because I called it out. Like, I said, okay, that's weird. JD, Dom's been sticking up for you, and Dom, you've been sticking up to different JDs. That's weird. Why are you doing that? And I think they just did that to extend, till Liv's return. But they've always had each other's back. Dom would have JD's back in the face of Damien. And that's what TDJC is saying right here. They would always talk and work together while Damien was being rude and Finn was playing peacemaker. Like, Damien would get, he was like, when he was the champ, he would just send, JD, Carlito, and Dom out there just to do, all the heavy work while he just sat back. It was always softening him up. And I always hated that for JD and Dom, because they were always being used to soften somebody up. You remember how many times Rhea would put Dom in a match where he didn't want to do, because she's like, okay, you're gonna go this match, and you're like, what? Like, why are you making the match for Dom there? And then she would do the same thing with JD. Like, they had to do it. So that's how they got forged as brothers, because they went through that grinder together. And me personally, what I would like is that Dom saying like, hey, I don't want to go for the Intercontinental Championship anymore, but I want JD to go for the Intercontinental Championship. Just, stick up for him and help JD get his first single title. That's what I want Dom to do, because I think that would be really cool. That shows that Dom really is looking out for JD, and like, hey, I don't want to go for the Intercontinental title anymore, but you could go for the Intercontinental title. Be like an opposite of Finn. Like, instead of Dom blocking JD from getting a title, he's supporting JD getting a title. Khalib said, didn't he help Rusev attack JD? That's what I'm saying. It was weird. I think they were just extending it. And TDJC says here as well, which I kind of agree with, is saying that I actually think JD and Dom falling out was about Finn getting in JD's ear, and JD was viewing Finn as the mentor. But now the rose-colored glasses were calling off. Yeah, like, see, he was still deep with being, with Finn being his Da. And I like that explanation too. It was just really weird. After they got after that, and then they had a little chat where Dom, Finn, and JD were kind of cool. That went away. It didn't come back. So when JD had his surgery and came back, on social media, he was already looking at Finn and calling him weak. If you looked at his social media, when Finn says, "What do you see?" when Finn was hugging CM Punk, JD chimed in and said weakness. So JD was already seeing. He probably went away. Dom was probably talking to him while he was recovering, kayfabe wise, and then he starts to see what Dom was seeing with Finn. And then it was less and then Finn is just less like a mentor and less like his doc. Jacob says, "What do you think Don would be back on TV? Hopefully Monday if he cleared concussion protocol." Jerry says, "What do you think Rhea will win against Jade?" I kind of hope not. I really don't want Rhea to win. Like, she doesn't need another title. Like, she's getting into Charlotte territory, and I think almost now that Charlotte should have been the one facing Jade. Even though there was a chance of people getting tired of Charlotte when she goes after Jade, people might turn on Charlotte, but I think she established enough goodwill with Alexa, and her personality and character work has changed enough where people wouldn't hold it against her if she went after Jade. The problem with Charlotte is that she had so many back-to-back title wins. And Rhea is really on that verge of back-to-back title wins where people will turn on her. Like, she's on that cusp. Like I said, if she didn't have Gooners, then she would be in probably Charlotte's position at work. She'd probably be in Damien's position. But let me see if I could catch this bear. This game is getting really annoying, and I want to get past this area. Because I want to talk about what I would do at WrestleMania. Oh, see? Oh my gosh. Jacob says, when do you think JD should go after the IC title? I kind of hope he's in a multi-man against Penta at WrestleMania. Senior says, so no more tag team titles for Judgment Day anymore? Not with JD and Dom. If they ever get a heavy, maybe, but still, I actually want, like, an actual, if you're gonna do tag teams with Judgment Day, I think it should be, like, an actual team. Like, it should be, like, if they ever do it, like, OTM. Like, if they ever do the Cholo thing with OTM and bring him up for Dom, I think that would work. Like, it needs to be an actual tag team, not just another person to win tag gold. Alright, one more time. Here we go again. Hi. Okay. At least I can see the tracks a little bit better. Where did you go? You know what? I give up. I really do. I really give up. I'm gonna have to watch a YouTube video of this. Okay, so alright, I'm gonna give up right now because this thing is getting me on my nerves. Okay. Okay. Jadaria says, is there any match that you are excited for upcoming for WrestleMania? Like, I'm excited for? I think I'm just more interested in the Judgment Day Fallout. I'm not really interested in Roman Reigns and CM Punk because I don't want Roman Reigns winning if he's going to be part time. I really don't care about that much about Cody and Randy because they're trying to press Randy as a heel too much and when it should be Cody as a heel. Um, Tag teams, those are boring. Jade and Rhea, I'm interested in just to see if they actually do any character growth with Rhea, and everything else is just kind of up in the air. Um, 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 Let me go over here back to YouTube, see what they're saying. Um, um, TJ says, I feel like it was really Finn brushing off them getting the tag titles, coupled with the way Finn ruined Dom's celebrations, and the fact that he chose to lose by himself rather than with them. Yeah, pretty much. He isolated himself. Cleve said, is Finn going to cut a promo video as a demon or get revenge on everyone? I mean, you could still do that. That's why I'm saying, like, Dom needs to win, too, so it's really in a tricky situation. TJC said, honestly, if I booked this, I think they would have had Dom go to SmackDown and link up with the baddies. Nah. No, like, the story is already there with Roxanne if they're going to do anything. After this, no more women. Like, I'm seriously. He doesn't need to be in the baddies. That's a dominant group. He doesn't need to be around dominant women. If he's going to be in a relationship, I need somebody who's over the moon for him and him only. And he needs to be in that dominant position. I'm tired of Dom getting slapped around and being told to do by other women. Nah, that needs to stop. Rhea did it. Now it's Liv doing it. That needs to stop. He does not need to be around the baddies. The baddies need to be established without Dom, and that puts Dom in Rhea's orbit again. And no. Um, Clip says, so who is going to help Dom if Finn is a demon? And I've been noticing that Liv is tweeting Stephanie, and Stephanie is not tweeting back to Liv. Like, see, Stephanie and Liv could have, like, the social media thing on lock. That's what they did. You know, you can use social media to build up a feud. That's what happened with Liv and Rhea. But, you know, if you're going to be doing that language barrier thing, see, this is why I'm saying, like, why was Liv having to get, like, why was Stephanie needing a translator in Dom when we listening to Julia on SmackDown now? Have y'all noticed that? Like, out of the blue, Julia is speaking some really good English right now, and she sounds really confident, and she's been doing some. I think she's been doing some really nice promo work, Julia, with Kiana James. Like, so how come, like, Julia isn't afforded a translator here? Io wasn't afforded a translator. Shinsuke Nakamura, he could talk. He speaks really good English, but I'm just saying, like, as an example, like Shinsuke Nakamura, is it wasn't afforded a translator. Io and Asuka and Kari, they're not afforded translators, and then they have to make do with what they can do, and that's what kind of stalled Io because Io was dependent. You know, you still need the being able to cut a good promo, and that's in English right now. As then that's how it is. This is not saying they need to speak English. It's just that that's what's needed right now, promo wise. But with Stephanie, you get Dom as a translator, and then she's not really putting in any work. See, the whole feud. That's why nobody's really interested in the feud. You know, you could be at least trying to be doing something outside in social media, like pull up on somebody, at the dungeon or something like that. You know, they're both at the dungeon. I know they're both at the dungeon training. Like, pull up on the dungeon and start fighting. You know, you're both there. Do something like that. And with Dom and Finn, like, Dom can win on his own. It's just a matter of will the WWE allow him to do that. And going back over here. Tanya says, I think Devon will dethrone Penta when he turned heel. I mean, maybe. Jacob says, other than the IC title, what other you want to do with JD to go for? He could go for the Latin American Championship since Santos has been injured and he's getting surgery. And I thought Santos was going to go after El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr.'s belt. So you could have JD pop up and do that. Coach Ghostface says, what are they doing with Io at WrestleMania? I don't know. Either they put her with Rhea or they put her with Io, Stephanie, and Raquel. And to be honest, I really don't really care all that much what they're going to do with Io. I mean, it's unfortunate what they're doing with Io, but I'm looking at Raquel and I'm a little bit more concerned with Raquel than Io right now. During the upcoming European tour, maybe we'll get some mixed tag team matches. I'm not even sure I want mixed tag team matches because it seems like Dom always gets the short end of the stick. You know what I saw one time with mixed tag team? They said that Dom could get pinned when Finn caused Dom and Liv against what is it, Penta and Stephanie, and I'm like, you don't need to use Dom to get pinned to set up a match between him and Finn. Like, that's already set up. All Finn needs to do is come back, whoop up on Dom, and then there's your match. Or Finn just straight up challenges Dom. And this is from a so-called Dom fan? Like, why would you want Dom to be pinned in a mixed tag match? Like, he's already lost. This is like Roxanne taking all these losses for Liv in the build-up to the Royal Rumble. Like, I don't want that. You know, I didn't want Roxanne to keep taking all these losses all the way up until the Royal Rumble. I don't want Dom to take some losses in the Royal Rumble. See, they just want... That's taking all the mixed... People wanting... I'm not saying you specifically, senor. I'm talking about a certain subsection of fans that just want Dom and Liv to have all these mixed tag team matches or these mixed tag team championships when there's no reason for it right now. They need to keep Dom away from Liv and Stephanie. If Dom is going to pop up towards the end of the match. Like, but he shouldn't be a part of the build. Like, if he's around something, he needs to be in the periphery. He already has Dom. He already has Finn. He should be working on. He already has, like, Penta. And he could be working with JD. Like, Dom needs to be doing that. I don't want him to lose just to set up some kind of... Just to get Stephanie and Penta a win. I don't need him pinned. People want Liv and Rhea view again. People want Liv feuding with Rhea again. I say they just gotta put Liv and Rhea back together as Liv for Brutality and be done with it. Jacob says maybe they want to keep Liv and Stephanie separate even though they're training together for the match. I mean, they can, but at least that's something they could be doing. You know, I'm talking about ways of hyping up the match. Like, have Stephanie pull up on Liv when she's doing an interview. You know, things like that. That can give you heat in the match. And they're not doing it. It's just very bland. You know, like this past Monday, it was just Stephanie coming out, tossing Liv over the timekeeper's area, and that was it. There was nothing else. There was nothing that followed up. Nothing. Okay. So, going into WrestleMania, this is what I would kind of want with the Stephanie and Liv match. This is dependent on if Raquel is added to the match or not added to the match. So, if Raquel is not added to the match, this is where Raquel finally snaps and she costs Liv the title. And then this is where Dom falls right in behind. He turns on Liv. With or without Roxanne. Dom does his triple heel turn. And then you got the same thing that happened that Liv used to get Finn turned on her. It's just turnabout prayer play on Liv, where she just crashes, and then she can build the redemption arc. Because I think they'll do a redemption arc with her that they should have did with Rhea, but it will resonate better with Liv doing it. Um, if Raquel is a part of the match, with or without Io, you can actually have Raquel win the title for a little bit. Have Raquel win, have Roxanne come back and help Raquel. Dom makes his choice with Raquel and Roxanne. They're on his side. Liv still goes through the whole redemption process. She crashes and burn, redemption storyline, and then if she wants to win the title against Raquel later on, maybe around a SummerSlam, then she can. And that's the two ways I see it going right now. But I don't think if Raquel isn't added, I don't think Liv wins that title. Because it wouldn't make sense. I mean, yeah, you could have Raquel cost her, like, you could have Raquel turn on her, like, after the fact, but then, there's no point to it after Liv wins. Because if she wins, then you could say that Raquel got jealous, but this has already been brewing. This isn't like something that happens out of the blue and then all of a sudden, Raquel gets this stream of the Genesis and costs her there. So, I would just have it where Raquel just cost her the title. Because Liv cost Raquel the title. Tit for tat. Cozy Ghost says I was mad when Rhea abused Liv with the feud. I mean, yeah, but that's Rhea, and she gets away with a lot of stuff, and we should expect it by now. I see what you're saying, TJC, but I still don't want Dom around the other women. If he's gonna be around a woman, I need a woman that adores him and worships him. Like, he needs to be in that dominant position. I don't want him around a dominant group of women. And I want him near baddies that can exist without Dom, and that actually takes away from them trying to build someone up. So that Roxanne is already established. Let that go. If they're going in that any kind of direction with Dom, that needs to be the direction. Baddies, they need to develop on their own. They're already going to have a go of it with Rhea, so Dom doesn't need to be a part of that, in my opinion. Khalib says, so are they saying Roxanne to betray Liv at Mania and her downfall? I mean, I think Roxanne chooses Dom. Because she's already put herself on that side. It's always been there. Let's see. Go here. People, if Liv does not win on WrestleMania, they will crash out on Twitter. You think? Well, join the club. I really don't care if people crash out on Liv not winning. There are people there are people with losing streaks at WrestleMania, namely Asuka, who I think should have won. So if they're gonna crash out, they're gonna crash out. Like, I'm sorry, where I don't really care if people crash out on Liv. Like I said, I am a little bit more concerned about Raquel, because Raquel has was built up, and then she now dwindling here, where she could be a part of the story and building it up, and she's just taking all these losses after losses. So I really don't care if people crash out on Liv not winning. Will it be funny to me? Yeah. I won't deny that. because I think some people got a little bit of a persecution complex when it comes to Liv, but that's just me and I digress. Because every other thing that I see sometimes it's just like, well, Liv was doing this, 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 and this. I'm like, well, every wrestler goes through that. Yes, things can be snatched away in a blink of an eye with Liv, and I've seen it happen to other people. I've seen stuff taken away from Naomi until she got onto this last run before she got pregnant. Like, I seen that happen in real time. You know how frustrating that is to see your favorite do that? So I'm gonna wrap this up. Um, okay, so previewing Monday Night Raw. Um, this is what I should expect things to happen. We need to feel Finn's presence, even if it's the demon or like a tease, a heartbeat, something. We need to see Finn's presence if he's not there, if he's just selling his injuries. Dom, if he's cleared concussion protocol, should be there too. JD should step up, challenge Penta for Dom, be aggressive and be dangerous. And Raquel, she should start to feel really start being visibly frustrated with Liv. Because right now she's losing for Liv and that shouldn't keep lasting. And Liv and Stephanie needs more, so they're gonna toss Io and Raquel in there. That needs to get set up on Monday Night Raw too. And like I said, because right now Jade versus Rhea is building something is building something bigger, and Liv versus Stephanie is just waiting for something to happen. Um, so whatever needs to happen with Liv and Stephanie, it needs to happen sooner rather than later. And I'm gonna go and finish this up. I'm gonna find out what to do with this stupid boar. Um, because I guess Space says, "What do you think? She will have her moment, live with the title." I don't know. I mean, she's already won it. It's not like she hasn't won it before. It'd just be winning it at WrestleMania. And Jake says, "What do you think TJ will come to an end?" I don't think it will. It'll just be different iterations, like Bullet Club. Um, who? Oh, I got a subscription. Thank you, Paragon Shift. So Liv gets betrayed. Does she get one unhinged just like 2022 when she lost to Ronda Rousey? I mean, maybe. That might make Liv's Revenge Tour 2.0 make sense now. Um, Cleve says, will you be recording Liv getting betrayed at Mania? And yeah, probably so. Um, TJC said, if Liv loses, my issue is what more that's next for Stephanie aside from the titles. What are you doing with her? I mean, if Raquel gets added, Raquel could just take the title from Stephanie and that's that. You know, Stephanie could take that loss. If Raquel isn't there, then she could go. They could bring us some other people for her to face until it runs back around. So I don't know. But that's it. I'm gonna end it here. I want to thank y'all for helping me push over. For some reason, things caught on, and I got a lot of views in these last couple of videos. So I really appreciate y'all for helping me with that. Um, this replay will be up later. I'm gonna try and get a top 5 Just Per Day power rankings out tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. It just depends. But yeah, I have Discord, if you can see on the link here, and I have a throne. If you want to give me a cup of coffee, that'll help support the channel. But until then, I will see you guys on Monday. Hopefully, Scrap Daddy and Pierce will have something good. Monday Night Raw preview rise tomorrow. But until then, I will see you guys on Monday. I will talk to you guys later. Thank y'all all for joining. Ta-ta for now.